Okay, 2 minute drill time. Guys, and news has come down that the NFL is expected to dump two of the preseason games because of this whole COVID situation. What do you make of that, Eric?
It's probably just going to enhance the necessity for having a continuous roster from 2019 to 2020. Teams like Baltimore, teams like Kansas City, even teams like Green Bay, teams that were successful last year that kept the majority of their starters on roster. I think that's going to be even more important now with this abbreviated training camp and with an abbreviated preseason.
Yeah, I think it presents fewer opportunities, right, for players to catch the coach's eyes. Guys that may have needed maybe 3 or 4 games to really grab the coach's attention and earn a spot onto the roster. I think some of those opportunities are going to be lost. I think this puts more of an emphasis during the offseason training program. I think teams are going to go into those 2 preseason games already predetermining who their 53 players are going to be on their final roster. And so there's going to be some opportunities lost. And I think as Eric put it, there's going to be a lot of carryover from one year to another. It's going to be tough to shake a veteran loose from the roster unless it's for salary cap purposes.
Yeah, I think to a large extent, though, teams were kind of already doing that. And we think of those games as an opportunity for these bubble roster guys to be able to impress and make their way onto a roster. But so many times now you look at it and you see these guys have great games, and it just doesn't matter because the teams have already seen enough or decided in training camp or in the rest of the preseason games that those guys aren't making it and they're going to get cut anyway. So it's axing the 2 games that have become almost pointless anyway, that starters weren't appearing in, that depth chart guys were not seen as real games and were not given the benefit of the doubt, because I think they were games that could be sacrificed. And honestly, I think there's a decent part of me that hopes they keep this as the plan going forward. Get rid of those 2 games and just leave the preseason as a real, tool up for the regular season.
Yeah, but Sam, when are we going to be able to see some of those first-round quarterbacks who are not slated to start if we don't get to see them for 4 games in August? And speaking of one of them, the Dolphins drafted Tua with the 5th pick in the 2020 draft. Our own Ben Brown wrote an article saying that he was a value for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Guys, what do you think Tua's chances of winning that award are?
I think it's going to be difficult, to be honest, because I don't expect with a limited offseason to see Tua in the majority of the games during the 2020 season. Ryan Fitzmagic has a way of keeping whoever that young player is, he has a way of keeping them on the bench. And I know Miami at some point is going to say, all right, Tua, go ahead, get in there. But I don't think we can award the Offensive Rookie of the Year award to a guy who's played 50% of the time. This is no knock on Tua. I just don't know he's going to be able to log enough snaps to truly warrant winning the award.
Yeah, between injuries and between Fitzmagic keeping him on the bench, I think there's a decent chance that Tua doesn't start, even that early in the season. It's going to take him a while, plus the lack of sort of getting your feet wet as this truncated offseason takes an impact. Quarterbacks generally might struggle this year in terms of rookies, and we're talking about the best wide receiver class maybe ever. So I think you've got to look to one of the wide receivers to win Rookie of the Year, whether it's CeeDee Lamb in Dallas, whether it's Jerry Jeudy in Denver. I think receiver is where you're going to see Rookie of the Year come from.
I mean, I see this a couple ways. Like I wrote about last week, a few weeks ago, that the Dolphins face one of the toughest opposing schedules of secondaries, which might play to Tua's disadvantage, but it might play to his advantage in that it gets him on the field earlier. I mean, they play the Patriots, the Bills the first 2 weeks, and they face the Seahawks and the Niners in weeks 4 and 5. That might get Tua on the field faster than we previously thought. But at the same time, if he does get on the field, it might just be a tough road for him. So I agree. I think it's a long shot, but one that would be fun to see if it happened.
I think the Dolphins are going to play the long game with Tua, not the short game. They're not going to push him out there against some of these really good defenses because what happens if it turns bad? You don't want to lose the fans there in South Florida, not in September. I think they're going to play the long game and really try to allow him to rest up. Speaking of great defenses, hot off the press on our PFF.com, they just posted an article that I just recently wrote, and it's talking about the best cornerback trios entering the 2020 season. So I got to ask both of you, who is your best cornerback trio entering this season?
Yeah, man, I was looking down your list, Solly, and I just, nobody has a good trio. It's like everybody has two out of the three. And so I think I would go with a team that I don't think is even going to play them as a cornerback trio, but the Los Angeles Chargers. If you got Casey Hayward, Chris Harris Jr., and Desmond King, if that was your trio of corners, I think that's as good as it gets in the NFL. But I think the Chargers are going to use Chris Harris as their slot corner. They're going to kick Desmond King to safety, and they're not actually going to deploy those three as a trio of corners.
Yeah, I mean that's there. As you said, Sam, there's a glut of teams that have one or two good corners. It's tough to find all three, but there's one division where I think that there's a number of teams that are qualified for this. Pittsburgh with their three corners. Baltimore seemingly has they end up with 4 or 5 that can play every year, and Solomon's Cincinnati Bengals with Trey Waynes, Mackenzie Alexander, and William Jackson III coming off a tough year. Those all three of them are fairly stout. And for me, I probably have to go to the Ravens here. They're a team that blitzes a lot, but their corners still allow for the quarterback to pat the ball a little bit more than he otherwise should. For me, that's my pick.
Well, I don't know why we just don't give the Patriots the credit they deserve. Stephon Gilmore obviously is the linchpin, but I think we've got to give Jason McCourty the credit that he deserves, as well as Jonathan Jones. When you play as much zero coverage as they do, that means all three corners are playing man-to-man coverage a large majority of the time, and they tend to hold up. And there's nobody that I can pencil in for the Patriots who's a dominant pass rusher. So clearly they're winning by way of coverage, and I think their coverage does hold up. So for me, these are the three guys that have played the best over the longest period of time.
And then go even deeper with J.C. Jackson there at 4 as well.
There you go.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.